All right, let's dive in. Today we're tackling the Dharma Eye in Buddhism. You sent some amazing sources my way, ancient texts, some newer interpretations, even some interesting stuff about DMT, the pineal gland.
Yeah, it's definitely an area where, science and spirituality seem to kind of come together, wouldn't you say?
Well, sure, and that's what I find so cool about these
Yeah.
deep dives, exploring these intersections, ideas that make you really wonder, like, how much are we truly seeing? Now, I think a lot of folks, they hear Dharma Eye and they jump right to third eye, right? Mystical powers, different dimensions.
Right.
But are we really talking about the same thing?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting because they both kind of deal with this idea of seeing, beyond the everyday, but they're working on totally different levels. Like the third eye you mentioned, that's often tied to psychic stuff, telepathy, clairvoyance, all that. And it's also linked to the pineal gland and the production of DMT, that psychedelic compound.
Oh, yeah, the DMT connection. That's what I was really curious about. I mean, if DMT can trigger these like super intense altered states, is there a link to spiritual insight, maybe even like enlightenment, like we see with the Dharma Eye?
It's a question a lot of people are asking, a lot of research going on. But, from a traditional Buddhist perspective, the focus is really on building wisdom and insight through discipline, ethical living and meditative practice, not relying on external things or experiences, no matter how powerful.
No fast track to enlightenment through,
Right.
Through a psychedelic trip.
Maybe not. But it does make you wonder, could those altered states, maybe even with DMT, could they offer some insights that could, work alongside Buddhist practices? Or is that just a totally different road altogether?
Interesting. So, okay, both Dharma Eye and third eye are about seeing, but their goals, the way they get there, it's pretty different. So how does this Dharma Eye thing actually work? It's not like we're sprouting a third eye on our foreheads, right?
Yeah. Right, exactly. In Buddhism, the Dharma Eye is more of a metaphor. It's a big shift in how you perceive and understand things. Think of it like upgrading your mental software. Start seeing the world without those glitches and biases that cause us so much stress and frustration.
So it's not about like seeing auras or traveling to other realms. It's about seeing this reality, but with this clarity and wisdom that honestly most of us are missing.
Exactly. It's about cutting through those illusions our minds create, seeing the true nature of reality.
Okay, I think I'm getting it. But like, what are we actually seeing with this Dharma Eye? What's missing from our normal vision?
Well, in Buddhism, the Dharma Eye lets you see and really grasp the Four Noble Truths, right? So suffering, its cause, that it can end, and the path to get there. It also gives you insight into the three marks of existence: impermanence, suffering, and non-self.
Whoa. Okay, those are some big concepts. I think we need to break those down a bit, especially for those listening who might not be too familiar with Buddhist teachings.
Absolutely. Let's start with the Four Noble Truths. The first one, it just acknowledges that, suffering, it's a part of life. We all experience it in different ways.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to that, right? I mean, heartbreak, loss, disappointments, it's all part of the human experience.
Exactly. But the second truth, now that's where things get interesting. It says that the cause of suffering, it's attachment, clinging to things that are impermanent, including, our own sense of self.
Oh, wow. So it's not just bad luck. Our suffering is actually coming from like how we relate to the world, how we see ourselves. I'm starting to see how the Dharma Eye could help us, really see that connection.
Exactly. And that leads us right to the third truth. Suffering can end. Buddhism teaches that we can end suffering by letting go of that attachment. It doesn't mean becoming, emotionless, but developing a different way of relating to our experiences.
Right. So if suffering is tied to clinging, then learning to let go would naturally lead to less suffering. But how do we actually do that? That's where the fourth truth comes in, right?
Yes, exactly. The fourth noble truth, that outlines the path to liberation from suffering. It's usually called the Eightfold Path. It's like a set of guidelines, for ethical conduct, mental discipline, and wisdom, all leading to more peace, more freedom.
So the Dharma Eye isn't just about passively watching reality go by. It's about actively, engaging with it in a way that actually leads to less suffering and more fulfillment.
That's a great way to put it. It's about cultivating a whole new way of seeing, and that transforms not just how we see the world, but how we live in it.
Okay, now I'm really seeing the difference between the Dharma Eye and the third eye. It's not about psychic abilities or other dimensions. It's about understanding this reality and finding lasting freedom from suffering right here.
You got it. And that understanding, it gets even deeper with the three marks of existence. We talked about suffering, but the other two, impermanence and non-self, those are huge too.
All right, let's dive into those a bit. Impermanence, I'm guessing that means like everything's always changing, nothing stays the same.
Exactly. When you really grasp that truth, it helps you let go of that attachment to things that are always changing. It helps you appreciate the present moment and handle change with more ease.
Okay, that makes sense. And how about this concept of non-self? That one's always been a little bit tricky for me.
It's a profound idea and often misunderstood, yeah. Basically, it means that our sense of self, our I, me, it's not a fixed thing, but a collection of experiences, thoughts, emotions, all constantly changing.
So the Dharma Eye is like challenging our whole idea of who we are. That's pretty radical.
It is. But, understanding non-self, it can be incredibly liberating. It helps us break free from, the limits of ego and cultivate more compassion for ourselves and everyone else.
So it's not about erasing our individuality. It's more about like recognizing how everything's connected, seeing ourselves as part of this bigger web of life.
Exactly. And that realization, it can be so powerful. It shifts us from this self-centered view to a more expansive, more compassionate way of being in the world.
It's really hitting me as we dig into this Dharma Eye thing. It's not just about seeing things differently. It's like a totally different way of experiencing the world, how we fit into it all.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a shift, from me to something much bigger, more connected.
So instead of everything being about my problems, it's more about the bigger picture,
Yeah.
seeing how everything's kind of woven together.
Exactly. And with that, you get a deeper understanding of what causes suffering, not just for you, but for everyone.
That's interesting. We usually think of suffering as like a personal thing, but the Dharma is saying it's part of something much bigger.
It is a huge shift. The Dharma Eye, it helps us see how our own suffering is, well, often tied to these bigger systems of suffering in the world. Greed, hatred, delusion.
It's like zooming out from a close-up to this wide-angle shot.
Right.
You see the whole tapestry, all the cause and effect, how we're all linked.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And with that wider view, you start to feel compassion, not just for yourself, but for all beings caught up in that web of suffering.
Okay, but let's be real. Does this mean, like, if you develop the Dharma Eye, you'll never have negative emotions again, never have tough situations? Life still throws curveballs?
Of course. It's not about becoming immune to life's challenges. You'll still feel the full range of human emotions. But the Dharma Eye gives you a new way of relating to them.
So it's not about, like, bypassing those feelings, but more like we have a new lens to see them through. Instead of getting swept away, it's like we learn to surf the waves.
Exactly. You gain wisdom, equanimity, that ability to navigate challenges without getting totally overwhelmed.
That's what a lot of us want, right? That inner peace where we can face the ups and downs without getting totally derailed.
And that is the ultimate goal of the Dharma Eye, to cultivate this deep, unshakable peace that goes beyond those fleeting pleasures and pains of the world.
So it's not about becoming like an emotionless robot, but finding that stable ground, that inner peace, even when things get rough. It's resilience, not detachment.
You nailed it. It's about cultivating that deep sense of freedom within so you can experience life fully without being controlled by your reactions.
And I bet that freedom, it spreads, right? It changes how you see the world, but also how you act in it.
Of course. As your inner state shifts, your actions start to line up with wisdom, compassion, ethical behavior. It all flows together.
Which brings up a good point. The Dharma isn't just some, abstract idea. It actually affects how we live our lives.
Yeah, it's a transformative practice. It touches everything. Your thoughts, emotions, actions, your relationships.
It sounds like a lifelong journey then. Always deepening your understanding, refining your perception.
It's a path that unfolds over time, yeah. It takes patience, dedication, and a real yearning for the truth.
And as we go down that path, maybe those psychic abilities pop up, those cities we talked about.
Right.
But those aren't the main event, right? It's not about becoming some kind of spiritual superhero.
Right. Think of the cities as flowers that bloom along the way. Beautiful, but not the fruit we're after.
What we're after is much deeper. A big shift in consciousness leading to lasting peace and liberation. It's about, like, aligning our inner world with what we do out there, wouldn't you say?
Exactly. Recognizing our true nature, how we're all connected, and then living a life that reflects that understanding.
This has been incredible. I feel like we've just scratched the surface of this Dharma Eye. It's a lot to take in.
It is a vast and profound topic, and
Right.
there's always more to discover the deeper you go.
So for our listeners who are, really intrigued by all this, where would you point them? What are some good first steps?
Well, I definitely say check out authentic Buddhist teachings. There are great books, online resources, amazing teachers and communities, and of course, mindfulness meditation. That's powerful for cultivating awareness and insight.
Great advice. It's about taking those first steps, towards opening that inner eye of wisdom.
And remembering, the journey itself is just as important as the destination. Each step, it offers its own lessons, its own insights.
It's funny, as we talk about the Dharma Eye, it really makes you think about how we normally see the world, right? Like we're so stuck in our own ways of seeing with all our biases and experiences and all that.
Right. Yeah, it really pushes us to question our assumptions, Look beyond the surface, really take a look at those filters we've been using without even realizing it.
Because so much of what we experience is filtered, right?
Yep.
And it's not always easy to see things, as they really are. Sometimes the truth can be kind of unsettling, maybe even painful.
That's true. The Dharma Eye, it doesn't try to sugarcoat reality. It acknowledges suffering, impermanence, the illusion of a separate self. Those can be tough truths to face.
So it's not about creating this perfect picture of the world, is it? It's about facing it head on with courage and wisdom, even if it's even if it's a little uncomfortable.
Exactly. The Dharma Eye gives you that strength, that resilience to deal with life's challenges. It helps you see things clearly and respond in a skillful way with compassion.
It feels like, with all the noise and distractions these days, the Dharma Eye is like a path to real peace, to find that quiet inside yourself, even when everything's crazy around you.
Oh, absolutely. It's a refuge, from all that information overload we deal with every day, a way to step back, reconnect with that inner peace.
It's almost like finding an oasis, right in the middle of a busy city, calm in the middle of a storm.
I love that analogy. The Dharma Eye, it helps us cultivate this deep inner peace that doesn't depend on what's happening outside, It comes from within.
So it's not about running away from the world, but more like finding a way to be present, engaged, without letting it all overwhelm you. Changing how we relate to the chaos, not trying to get rid of it completely.
You got it. It's about being fully in life, but with wisdom, compassion, that sense of balance, bringing those qualities to every situation.
This really speaks to me. I think a lot of people are searching for that peace, that meaning in a world that feels so chaotic and overwhelming.
And the Dharma Eye offers that path, a timeless one. And it's open to everyone, no matter who you are, what you believe. It's a human potential just waiting to be unlocked.
What's really inspiring is it's not about reaching some impossible goal.
Yeah.
It's about these qualities we can all develop with practice. It feels achievable, like something anyone could work towards.
Absolutely. The Dharma Eye, it's not just for some elite group. It's within each of us, ready to be nurtured, awakened.
That's empowering, isn't it? Knowing we can all learn to see the world more clearly, with wisdom, to live with more purpose, more meaning. We have the power to change our perspective, to choose how we see and experience everything.
Exactly. That's what's so beautiful about the Dharma Eye. It reminds us that we can awaken, we can transform, and we can be a part of that evolution, both as individuals and as a whole.
Wow, I think we've really covered a lot today. We've gone from the third eye, with all its mystery, to the profound wisdom of the Dharma Eye. And we've explored how all this connects to, perception, reality, suffering, and liberation.
It's been an amazing journey, hasn't it? And I hope it sparks some curiosity for our listeners, giving them something to think about.
Before we finish up, I want to leave everyone with a thought to take with them. As you go about your day, remember this idea of the Dharma Eye. Ask yourself, what parts of how I see things are clouded by my own conditioning? What filters am I using that might be distorting things? And maybe most importantly, how can I see the world in a clearer way, in a way that's more freeing for myself and for everyone around me?
That's beautiful. Remember, cultivating the Dharma Eye, it's a practice, an ongoing journey. It's about awareness, compassion, always learning. And the rewards, well, they're immeasurable. More peace, more freedom, and the fulfillment of our true potential.
Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your knowledge. This has been really eye-opening.
It was my pleasure. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Dharma Eye. May we all cultivate the wisdom and clarity to see the world with eyes wide open.